here, I be on the paper chase. I'm all about my cheddar. I ain't touching the mic if it ain't 5G's or better. I plan to never fall short. Again, I won't gain. Boy, I'ma tell you, no pain, no gain. I hustle hard for what I want, that's how I get it. I struggle hard, and if it's out there, I'm gon' get it. If you see Ciamara, a dollar sign on the CD, somewhere on there you'll see featuring the BG. Me and my nigga V, like Suge and Pop, we getting our shine on all the way to the top. Look, ain't no stopping us, boy, don't try. When you hear once, it ain't no secret you going by. You could lie about this, stunt about that. You can't die these 50 shots, I'm about the red tat-tat. Ain't nothing changed, still a bust a wig splitter. Straight hustle for my cheese, I'm a money go get about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate split 'em. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate kill 'em. I'm about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate split 'em. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate kill 'em. It's all about Benjamin, that's all I wanna have. Ducked off in my house with a hoe taking a bubble bath. Sparkling marble, covering all my room floors. A maid in a bathing suit doing my house chores. Do not disturb sign on my bedroom door, cause my dick getting ate by my #1 whore. Look, I'm money hungry, about acting a donkey. No longer a junkie, I got rid of that monkey. I'm cheeky, I don't want you fucking with my shit. My neck and my knuckles covered with crushed out shit. Sparkling gold cover my motherfucking grill. Pockets filled with big head $100 bills. Fucking up this rap game with these wicked rap skills. And ain't far from making G's to making meals. I'm a trill BG, uptown hard hitter. On the real, my nigga, I'm a money go get about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate split 'em. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate kill 'em. About my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your betty nigga, somebody play a hate split 'em. Get your betty nigga, somebody try to stop you, kill 'em. Oh, I gotta get it, gotta grab it, gotta have it. Like snorting dope or snorting coke, it's a habit. I gotta see it, gotta feel it, quick to spin it. Shoot dice all day with my niggas trying to win it. I rap hustle, cause I'm a hustling ass nigga. Also a get told about busting some ass nigga. So you come play with me, about my cheese, you gotta go fool. In a casket 6 feet deep, selling tapes and CDs like selling pick 3s. Rang up a million sales, we didn't hit the lottery. I'm a Benjamin chaser, player hater eraser. Police have no case cause I do murders without a trace. I'm almost at home, I done passed third base. I'm playing with 5 figures, when I get 6 I'm straight. If I catch your bitch down bad, I'ma hit her. Paper chasing nigga, BG a money go get about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your betty nigga, somebody clear hate split 'em. Get your betty nigga, somebody try to stop you, kill 'em. I'm about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your betty nigga, somebody play hate split 'em. Get your betty nigga, somebody try to stop you, kill 'em. I'm about my betty nigga, I'm about my betty, by all means necessary. I'm about my betty nigga, I'm about my betty, by all means necessary. All about the Benjamin, it's all about the green, the motherfucking loot. My grind on, I get my shine on, you get yours on. I'm trying to get mine, you trying to get yours. I'm stacking mine, you stacking yours.
We Japanese still. You getting cooked in front of your family like a Japanese meal. It's just shoot the hibachi and none of you niggas can stop. Can't help but watch me. So look, bro. You always get this current thing, or reoccurring thing, rather, of if you see people with a different skin complexion than you accept in your ideology, then therefore they are invaders. And it's a repeated offense committed by Afrocentrics, Black Hebrew Israelites alike, when it comes to North Africans. When they look at North Africans, the ultimate response for them is that they are always going to be considered in their eyes as being invaders. And the reason why they believe this, and this is why, I just got done watching Tazariak versus Ariel on their ideas and their views. They will deny that they're white supremacists, that they're racist, that they're, they view the world through the same lens that the Nazis do. They will deny it all day. I'm not being racist. I'm not killing and hanging nobody. But you have the same talking points, the same ideological viewpoints, where you will base someone's deep ancestral connection to a geographical location based upon how they look. And the Klan would do this. They would say the true Christians are white. They would say purity is associated with their complexion and how people look, right? When reality does not show that. You could have the same complexion, the phenotype and appearance of someone, and not share the same ancestral connection or not share the same cultural connections. I mean, this happens throughout the world. This is reality. But you get these groups and they say they deny their Ku Klux Klan ideological connections, and their white supremacist ideological connections. But you speak the language of a white supremacist. You speak the language of a redneck that lived in the 18th and 19th century. You speak the same language. All you did was reverse the whole shit. So instead of saying white, you're saying black. Because that's what this whole shit boils down to. If North Africans exhibited sub-Saharan African qualities, quote unquote, air quotes, their dark skin, prognathicism, and stuff like that, this would not be a conversation. But since a large majority of what we see as North Africans today have a different phenotype than you're willing to accept, now they got to be invaders. Now, everybody in North Africa is, quote unquote, Arab invaders, European invaders, everybody. And it came through the way of the Islamic expansion. Before the Islamic expansion, they did not look this way. This is the idiocy that you hear being, echoed throughout social media. Social media is replete with these type of talking points. And this is why I noticed you either get one or both sides of the extreme. One side of the extreme is there exists no sub-Saharan Africans in North Africa prior to the Arab invasion. Air quotes. And then the other side of the extreme is there exists no white-looking people prior to the Arab invasion. You guys are the same thing, just two sides of the same coin. It's the same argumentation from both sides, using and filtering their argument through the lens of skin color and the ideas of race. But you don't want to be called racist. No, that's the box you belong in, because that's where your conversation begins and ends. The race concept, how people look, the immutable characteristics that you place on them. That's where these arguments start and end. You are very much so a racist. You are very much so a white supremacist in blackface. Right? You're just reversing the concept to fit your idea of racial superiority or whatnot. So anyone outside of that, because you believe that it's destined for black people to be from the top to the bottom of the African continent to be, replete and be dominant, and as far as phenotypic expression goes. Well, let me tell you something. South Africans most likely look like Khoisan people as far as phenotype, complexion, and skin gradation go. They were much lighter, and the evidence is pointing towards this before the intervention of Bantu tribes migrating south and dominating them before. That is what most likely made them darker, or made South Africans darker. Isn't that interesting? So you just can't look at a people today and say, well, that's how they always look, or that's what this geographical location or biogeographic identity has to be, because black here, white here. No, that's not how it works. Europe was predominantly dark skinned if we go during the Holocene and beyond. Europe, the people that you call Arabic, right? They were predominantly dark skinned the further we go back in time. And this is a truth for the entire planet. We can do this with any lighter skinned people or people that you're not comfortable with associated with today because of the way they look, because you're racist. You go further back in time, the darker these populations go. Matter of fact, let me just show the graph on this. You know, as soon as you bring that up, I can't watch this no more. Blasphemy. Everything you say has to, concede to my racist ass ideology. And that's why we have this conversation. This is why we have these fights, because you can't get over the skin color ideology. You can't get over that lighter skinned people have antecedents or ancestors that have been living in these regions for thousands of years. But since they're light, that kind of, in your mind, it means that it invalidates them. That's the idiocy that we're hearing every day, and that's replete on social media. Right? So what I'm gonna do, let me go to my chat real quick. I posted these charts in this chat here. Let's open up with this. I think this is a great way to open this up, because we gotta attack this weird way of trying to view world history through the lens of skin color and skin graphing everybody. Like what we're gonna get into in the North Africa, majority of the North Africans are autochthonous. They've been there for thousands of years. Some of them have been there since the Pleistocene. We're talking about 10, 15,000 years ago. How the fuck are they invaders? Let alone Arabic invaders from 700 CE. You got to use your noggin, man. And what happens is these people are not using their noggin. Thank you, Neptali. Light skin is an uncanny valley for Afrocentrics. Exactly. You know, they're anti-light skin, anti-pale skin, just like a white supremacist would be anti-dark skin or anti-brown skin. So I said they're the same. They just reverse engineered it. That's all it is. They just reverse engineered white supremacy. Watch this. Here's a paper that was published in 2021. The evolution of human skin pigmentation involved in the interaction of genetic, environmental, and cultural variables. Now, we're not going to go throughout the entirety of this article. But I just want to make a quick sidebar for all you skin supremacists out there. You melanin versus failed melanin guys. You know what I'm talking about. So even from an evolutionary standpoint, they believe that, modern humans were dark skinned at first, as you can see, because we're not that old. Modern humans come in about, 500,000 years ago, and they were all primarily dark skinned. That would mean all populations. Look, East Africans, dark skinned. Even with the advent of the gene variant or allele that we believe has something to do with lighter skinned Europeans, SLC2485, even with it being introduced within this population, they still have dark skinned variants here. West African being dark skinned. And here's what I was telling you about South Africa earlier. I was alluding to this. Prior to the Bantus coming down and pretty much wrecking shop in South Africa, South Africa's a fairly lighter skin. The Bantus, bringing Central and Western Sahelian African ancestry down with them, brought in those darker skin variants to South Africa. So South Africa as a whole would look more like the Khoisan population than the Niger Congo variation that we associate West Africans with today in South Africa. But what about the rest of the world? Coastal South and Southeast Asia. These people have been dark skinned, brown and dark skinned people, as you can see. This is 70,000 to 10,000 years. That's what these people have been most likely exhibiting. Darker skin. You go out through the whole planet Earth, we see the same common thing. With the advent of modern humans, darker skin, with them the Pleistocene, darker skinned humans. That's what we see. Humans don't get lighter until relatively recent. Melanesian Australia, the same thing, brown, and they even get darker. And here's the funny thing. They believe the darkening of their skin came from Denisovians. Because remember, at the advent of humans, Denisovians, Neanderthal, that before the Homo sapiens sapien, they would have been dark as well. And if you had any of those people lingering around, according to, evolutionary history, they could have introduced even darker skin tones to your Melanesian Australian population. Why is this funny to me? Is because people believe the opposite with Neanderthals. Well, if you mix with Neanderthals, you get whiter or you get pale skin. Well, there's no evidence of this pale skin. When Neanderthals died out like roughly 30,000 years ago, according to the evolutionary time scale, there's no evidence of this because during this time, the world was primarily dark. But there is an argument for archaic humans like Denisovians possibly playing a role in darkening people like Australian or Melanesian populations. Anyway, it's funny how science actually just blows up in the face of what you guys be saying. So it says generalized timeline, main events in evolution, skin pigmentation in coastal South and Southeast Asia, Melanesian Australia. Beginning around 70,000 years ago, small populations of coastal dispersers make their way along the coast of southern and southeastern Asia. Introgression for Denisovians occurs about 43,000 years ago, possibly involving introduction of variants favoring darker pigmentation. Now, write the people that compose this article and get mad at them. Y'all never do that. Y'all get mad at the people that just read. And we're one of the few channels that just actually go into the scientific material and read and deliver it to you guys. Right? And it's so funny to me reading this because, again, you have Black Hebrew Israelites, Afrocentrics alike that will say, pale skin comes from archaic humans like Neanderthals. And it's like, well, actually the opposite, because Neanderthals and Denisovians, they would have it most likely darker. See how that works? Anyway, let's go down. What about the rest of the world? Some very powerful, poignant graphs here. Central Eurasia. 70,000 years ago, they was relatively dark. Right? You don't see them getting light until post-Holocene time, 10,000 years onward. Right? And in Europe, this will be their Mesolithic period in Europe. Northern and northwestern Europe, as you can see, they're relatively dark, brown skin until about 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. We see the positive selection for the SLC24A5 variant, which we know possibly got introduced via Africans, as we read earlier. And East Asia, all of them were relatively dark until more recent times. They get lighter. So my point of bringing this out with North Africa, just because you got light-skinned people there, or light-skinned variation, does not denote that they were somehow invaders. Because someone looks a certain way and has a certain morphological traits, certain skin gradation, does not tell you their deep ancestry. The entire planet at one point in time were dark skins. The ancestors of the people today that are lighter skinned, like your East Asians, like your Northwestern Europeans, right? Like some of your Arabs, were all dark. They were all dark. Beringia started off a little lighter and got darker over time, right? Americans pretty much dark 15,000 years on to onwards until, the European intervention. So, I mean, this is a great paper. I'll put it in the back. I just had to do this before we segue into the main topic because our ideas of morphology and phenotype are so skewed because of our ideas of how race works. And people have an immutable characteristic, meaning not changing, unchanging characteristics. And that's not true. As you can see, East Asians, the ancestors of East Asians look different than the progeny of these ancient East Asians. And we can do this with every group. Northwestern Europeans, same thing. Cheddar Man, the people of Dargan Land, the Neanderthals of Dargan Land, they were all darker skinned people. The Denisovans, dark skinned people. When they did the phenotypic analysis of Neanderthals and Denisovans, they all came out to be dark to very black. That's what the phenotypic analysis shows. That the sequencing in their genes would most likely produce a darker skinned individual. Anyway, from there I digress. And we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this because North Africans are not invaders. And the reason why people do and say these things is because of how they look, right? But they're not. And I'm going to show you the post that inspired today's video. So from Jacob Israel's group, Jews versus Hebrew Israelites, Let's Debate, someone by the name of Jesse Duckett says, Islam take over. So basically Islamic takeover. And then he has a picture to the left saying ancient North African. Now, I don't know how you consider this an ancient depiction of a North African when this is a photograph and photographs are not that old, right? But they show a photograph, show a dark-skinned woman, and she might very well be. I don't have the source for this image. She might very well be North African and, you know, have antecedents in North Africa. We don't know. But this is the type of scholarship, the level of scholarship and level of thinking that is pervasive in social media. And people get mad and upset when you say, give me a source. Show me where you're getting this from. Let me read it. People get mad. Yes, you got to prove it. We've been going through this for too damn long. And it's the norm to just make fucking statements and nobody wants to show their work. Remember when you were in school and you would give the answer and the teacher like, well, how did you get that answer? How did you come to that conclusion? That's when we talk about methodology. That's when you break it down, show, well, this is how I came to that conclusion. And a lot of times if we did that, we could point out what's erroneous about you coming to that conclusion. But this is the age and era that we live in here. So to the left, the dark-skinned representative is considered ancient North African. And to the right, the lighter-skinned sister is considered a primary product of the Islamic takeover of North Africa. This is what they're, hinting towards. And he's actually posting another post here. It's North Africans, ancient African kingdoms, Black history. So, what's being said here is the black is black is fact, white ain't right. That's what we're seeing here. So people come in, real talk, hell yeah, my nigga, real talk. They took blacks out, Quimont says, they took blacks out of North Africa and gave them America and now rule over them. These are all the crazy ideas that float and exist and persist in social media. North Africa was inundated with blacks, and then the blacks got taken out and they moved to America, and it's all this weird pseudo mumbo jumbo going on here, man. It all stems back to the ideas of race and skin color based on people's deep ancestry and how they look. And this guy right here might be Western European. We don't know. He might be Western or Eastern or Northern European by descent, by ancestral means. But looking at him, no, he's obviously that he's African, but he believes he's American. Like, come on, man. Phenotype does not tell you that. And that's the issue. This is the core problem with this post. It says America loves for Black Americans to say that America is their land because that means Black Americans will have no interest in getting back North Africa. The biblical pie in the sky only religion is also another plot to keep Black Americans from taking back North Africa. Why would the people who put you in slavery give you a Bible that can free you from slavery? Instead, the Bible says in Ephesians 6:4, with 1 Peter 2:18-25, slaves obey even your unjust human masters with fear and trembling like you do to Christ. So then he makes this a whole religion battle. I don't give a damn about that. Absalom, this dude's a racist. He's a Negro delusions. You got the same idea, bro, just in reverse. You believe that all the people there today are, legitimate, which is not a bad argument. Not all of them, but majority are. But you also believe that sub-Saharan Africans, black people, are not, don't belong there either. So y'all believe the same thing, just in reverse. Absalom. I mean, this is a fake account. He got like 30 goddamn accounts. This one is saying, remember the one on the right is Semitic and very close to the Jews. I don't know how you know that. You didn't do a DNA test of this person. We're just looking at the photograph. And then this guy's racist. Is bow down Sanj. Back in the day, you wouldn't dare to speak to Arabs in such a disrespectful manner. How do you know this sister to the right is an Arab, well, essentially speaking? How do you know that? How do you know? He's basically bow down Sanj, which means black people, right? And when you address these people correctly and say you're racist, look at how you talk. Look at the things you post. And then you be like, no, I'm not being racist. That is racist. You're basically telling somebody to submit to you based on their skin color. You're textbook racism right there. But I didn't hang nobody. I didn't shoot nobody. No, you're fucking racist. Oh my God. This is the stupidity we deal with right here. This picture has been Afro shopped. It's a big fat lie. Try harder. Yeah, it is a lie. Just because someone's black does not mean they're authentic to a place, or just because someone's white does not mean they're fake, and vice versa. Maurice Albright, isn't that because of Arabic colonization? Nothing to do with Europe, but the people of Southern Europe are also dark. Are dark also. Countries look like what's close to them. Huh. Both our photos, therefore neither are ancient. And the reality is, you can find women today in North Africa just like both these women, and you would have been able to find both in the past. That is a fact, REA. Finally, somebody that's speaking with some sense. In ancient North Africa, you would find women that are, African looking, and women that are, lighter skin, aquiline nose, the whole nine. And we know this because we have skeletal remains from North Africa, and they have looked at the craniometrics and the morphology. Some of them look sub-Saharan. Some of them look, more akin to other Mediterranean European populations. That is actually true. One of the heavily studied groups is the Garamantes, and with the Garamantes, you see certain skulls with like fragments around the lip, where the jaws would be, which is indicative that they would have had some kind of lip plug like you see with sub-Saharan African. And also they had prognosticism, widening of the nose and stuff of that nature. That's exhibited in Tunisia. We're talking 3,000, 4,000 years ago. So you do have a mixture of these phenotypes there in ancient North Africa. This brother knows something. All right, but then he goes into a bit of pseudoism here, saying that North Africans enslaved Europeans for hundreds of years. Okay, whatever. Anyway, and then Hebrews Hood, come on, brother. He says, yep, 600 AD, the Arab invasion. Now, everybody goes to this. The Arab invasion is the reason why North Africans look the way they look today. Now, this is the primary claim here. The Arabic invasion. This guy says, actually, they claim places like Egypt has had an 8% increase of sub-Saharan African DNA since antiquity. That is true. There's an uptick of sub-Saharan African ancestry within Egyptian. Does not mean it did not exist back then. It did exist, but there seems to be an uptick. And I come in and said, nope, try again. Lighter skin tones has been in North Africa long before Islam. And this is what I'm making this video for. My brother Ivry comes in and says, interesting enough, despite both women looking different, they could be maternally related. They both could carry mtDNA haplogroup L or M or U or H, etc. Phenotype doesn't determine what haplogroup you carry, nor can you use phenotype to determine common ancestry or where people come from. In reality, depending on how far back you go in time, ancient North Africans have both phenotypes. You can easily find examples of both phenotypes present together in ancient North Africa prior to Islam. However, you go back to Neolithic, Mesolithic, Paleolithic time, like 20 to 50,000 to 130, 200,000, 300,000 years ago, then yeah, if you go back that far, you find more darker and more robust North Africans, sure, because all humans going back 50 to 300,000 years ago was dark skinned and robust by default. And that's what I opened this video with, to show that darker skinned people exist throughout, as ubiquitous on the planet Earth. Everybody that is a Homo sapiens sapien descends from darker skin groups. Neftali says it always either the transatlantic slave trade or the Arab invasion. It's never peaceful with these guys. Exactly. Shotgun level lookership. Yep. Did I respond to my brother Avery? I say, yep. The argument is moot for several reasons as you listed above. Phenotype does not determine deep ancestry. The gene for lighter skin may have developed in Africa. Anyway, and this guy right here, Torah apologetics. This is why I don't trust Black Hebrew Israelites, man. It's just like trusting a damn KKK of Klansmen. It says, duh, replaced, of course, something universal to happen. No, this is not. This had nothing to do with replacement. Nothing to do with that. And Ayub says North Africans were not even black before Islamic expansion. Wrong. You did have black North Africans before the expansion. And here's the thing: everybody talks about the gates of in Egypt. What's the gates? The 4 gates. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The gates. I'm trying to remember his name. The racist. Let me see what it comes up. Where it has the Libyans, Nubians, Asiatics. Not the Book of Gates. Real quick. This is all off scripted. Oh yeah, the Book of Gates. So everyone should be familiar with this imagery from the Book of Gates. I mean, I think this is like 11th century. And these are depictions of several groups in Africa during this time. Oh, well, in Egypt during this time. And look right here. You got lighter skinned people. And these people would be associated with the Libyans. Then, of course, you got the Middle Eastern or the Amu. Fringes on their skirts, right? And the Egyptians and the Nubians being the darkest of all of them. These are depictions, artistic depictions, but it does at least show that there's some familiarity with lighter skin types in North Africa during this time. As you can see, the Libyans, which is North Africa, are white or lighter or pale skin in their depictions. So what's the issue? This is ancient. This wasn't drawn by modern people. This was drawn during that time. What's the issue? The Nubian represent the darker side of the spectrum, and then these Libyans, or the Tamahu, as Jabari calls them, are lighter skin. So what's the fucking issue? Somebody explain this to me. We're gonna go over some genetics. We're gonna go over some archaeogenetics and some history here today, explaining these things. This is before Islam. This is before the Arabic, expansion and whatnot. So you can't blame that on this. So, Book of Gates. Let me look update it. The tomb of Seti II is where this comes from. Yeah, the tomb of Seti II. Right. So, when was this published? Because that's gonna be the next thing. Oh no, the Arabs. No, ain't nobody made this up, man. This is ancient shit. From the walls of Kemet for all you Afrocentrics out there. I love calling it that. Tomb of Seti II. Oh, here it is here. The Book of Gates. The text and images associated with the Book of Gates appear in many tombs in the New Kingdom, including all the pharaonic tombs between Horemheb, which is around 1295 BC, and Ramses VII, which is around 1130 BC. So this is ancient stuff. This is going back to the Iron Age, Near Eastern period, where we see depictions of lighter skinned people, right? And even when they did the 3 pharaohs, how did the 3 pharaohs look? Let's do that. 3 pharaoh. What do you call that? Not a read. Morphology. Let me type that in. The 3 pharaohs. One had E, the other 2 had haplogroup J. So even the people that say that haplogroup J comes from, mainly an Arabic invasion, they're wrong, because again, we see J within the pharaonic, mummies. Like this shit is more complex than you guys would believe, right? Here it is. The faces of 3 ancient European. I'm thinking like the Afrocentric. the faces of 3 ancient Egyptians brought to life using 2,000-year-old DNA. This is what they would look like. Y'all see that? Here's the depiction of these 3,000-year-old Egyptians. 3,000 years ago. Egyptians wouldn't have most likely looked like this. Now, these are 3 individuals, but again, to show that phenotypic expression being there in ancient North Africa prior to the Islamic intervention. Islam wasn't even thought of during this time. This is probably 1,000 to 2,000 years before the Islamic expansion. This has nothing to do with an Arab invasion. And what's interesting about North Africa is connected via the land, via the Syro-Phoenician belt, right? Going into the Levant, connected to Eurasia. There's been people traveling back and forth. Again, we have brought this up on the channel to ad nauseum. This is why in Egypt, you see artifacts that are associated with places like Afghanistan, lapis lazuli. We see that. We see lapis lazuli in ancient Egypt in the pre-Naqada period. That's 5,000 years ago. So people have been going back and forth for that long. This is, again, I can't stress this enough. This is long before the advent of Islam. So can we put the rest? The reason why North Africans look the way they look is because of Islam. That's just simply not true. So from there, let's keep going. From there, I want to go to the first article. First scientific article. Let's talk science for a minute, man. We played the phenotype game. The Book of Gates show you lighter skinned people within the Talmud, right? These are images that are taken from the walls of ancient Egypt. And the facial reconstructions of 3 of the mummies would have looked like what you see on the screen. So I can end the video. I should be able to end the video here. I should be able to just stop the video. There's enough evidence here to just say that this is a wash. But let's go here real quick. Population history of North Africa based on modern ancient genomes. Again, this was published in March 2021. I'll also drop the link in the chat so everyone can have these papers. We ain't got no secret Illuminati sources here. All right, so boom. And within this paper, let me blow this up a little bit more. It deals with modern and ancient genomes. So it says, compared with the rest of the African continent, North Africa has provided limited genomic data. Nonetheless, the genetic data available shows a complex demographic scenario characterized by extensive admixture and drift. Despite the continuous gene flow from the Middle East, Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa, an autochthonous genetic component that dates back to the pre-Holocene times is still present in North African groups. So these people that you call, invaders, they have ancient components that go before the Holocene times. We're talking about post 10,000 years. Within them, showing you that they have been there for a long ass time. And that's despite continuous gene flow from the Middle East, Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa. The comparison of ancient and modern genomes has evidenced a genetic continuity in the region since the Epi-Paleolithic times. Later population movements, especially the gene flow from the Middle East associated with the Neolithic, have diluted the genetic autochthonous component, creating an east to west gradient. Recent historical movements, such as the Arabization, and this is what most people put the emphasis on, the Arabization. Oh, all these people come from the Arabization, they come from Islam and the conquest of Islam. That's the claim. It says, have also contributed to the genetic landscape observed currently in North Africa and have culturally transformed the region. Genome analysis have not shown evidence of a clear correlation between cultural and genetic diversity in North Africa. as there is no genetic pattern of differentiation between the Tamazight, i.e. the Berber, and Arab speakers as a whole. Besides the gene flow received from neighboring areas, the analysis of North African genomes has shown that the region has also acted as a source of gene flow since ancient times. So just because they have these cultural variants, and just because there is Arabization, and here's the funny thing too, y'all don't do this with Arabicized groups in West Africa. And the reason why y'all don't do it because they dark skinned. But you do have Baggara Arabs that are literally descendants of Arabs. Literally. Well, let me show y'all that real quick for the people claiming that these people are just invaders. Let me see. Baggara Arabs. There's a Baggara there. As you see, these are darker skinned people. This includes darker skinned people. So y'all don't talk about these Nigerians, right? Or the people of Chad, because you're okay with this phenotype. Oh, that's authentic. That's authenticity there. When a lot of these people descend directly, especially on the male side, descend directly from Arabs. Anyway, let's get back to the article. As a result of the genetic uniqueness of North African groups and the lack of available data, there is an urgent need for the study of genetic variation in the region and its implications health and disease. The genetic study of North African human groups has been generally neglected. Instead, the focus of population genetic analysis has been placed on neighboring areas, thereby overshadowing the relevance of North Africa. On one hand, the African continent has captured most of the attention for being the cradle of humankind. However, the focus of genetic studies have been mainly set on Eastern and Southern Africa as suggested geographical origins of our species. The expansion of the Bantu-speaking groups from Western Africa associated with one of the major population moves also received much attention. Therefore, North Africa has been neglected in genetic studies compared with the rest of the continent. Moreover, North Africa has been considered as an extension of the Middle East into the African continent and therefore received little recognition as a unique entity until recently. Thus, a lower amount of genetic data in North Africa has been collected as compared with the other regions. Even recent global genome databases, such as the Human Genome Diversity Project and the Simon Genome Diversity Project, only considered a single population, the Mossberg, and 4 individual genomes, 2 from Mossberg and 2 from Sahrawi, respectively. Fortunately, in the last few years, genetic data, including ancient and current day whole genomes, have been analyzed in order to refine the population history of North Africans. So when you view, let me see this. Let's get this one here. When you view North Africa and all its components, this is what it's going to look like, right? This is what it's going to look like, man. Prehistoric trans-Saharan migrations. So you got people coming from below the Sahara and possibly during the Holocene and even older. You see people coming from North Africa migrating southwards with the spread of pastoralism, as we see here. You do see some back to Africa migrations 12,000 years ago. We know this happened because RV88 is in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, in the Chad Basin. Neolithic expansion 7,500 to 5,000 years ago. We know this happened because the introduction of Levantine goats, sheep, and cattle come in around this time into Sahara. And then look what we have here. 7th to 11th century CE, Arab conquest. Most people just focus on this damn era of time and nothing else. Some of these people are not even aware of the Neolithic expansion. They're not aware of the back to African migrations. They're not aware of none of this shit because focusing on colorism and white supremacy and all that other bullshit has you only worried and concerned about the Arab conquest. You believe the peopling of North Africa, as it is today, its current composition is mainly a product of the Arab conquest. This is a farce. This is a component, a recent component, and it does not make up the bulk. All right. So it says schema of the main population movements in North Africa. Movements from Europe is in green. As you can see, that we're going to talk about this too. For all you people, these people that are white and invaders. Prehistoric contacts from Iberia going both ways into North Africa and out of North Africa. As you can see here, historical Mediterranean conquest and commerce going in and out of Africa. This is all before your Arab conquest. All before that. And again, Neolithic expansion. Before the Arab conquest, back to African migration before the Arab conquest. Sub-Saharans coming in before the Arab conquest for the races that believed there were no Sub-Saharans in North Africa until the Arab conquest. So, I could just use one bullet to kill, two birds. Scheme of the main population moves in North Africa, movers from Europe in green, the Middle East in blue, Sub-Saharan Africa in dark orange, and North Africa in yellow are shown. Arrows are approximations and show direction rather than specific migration routes for the major migration, although additional migrations may have occurred. As you can see, look here, spread of pastoralism approximately 2,000 years ago. And again, that means there are West Africans that are North African origin, and there's certain races that don't believe that as well. But it is true. You have descendants of slaves carrying North African variants of E1B1A, North African variants of E1B1B, EM78, that are carrying these clades, most likely because they're a product of these pastoralists that were coming down and mixing with the Sub-Saharan African, Western African, Central African population. Anyway, so back to the article. North African data from classical markers to whole genomes. Despite the limited population data in North Africa, most analyses have shown a complex pattern of genetic diversity. And that's that word that will kill a racist every time, diversity. These groups have several ancestral components. They're not homogeneous. There's several ancestral components within it. And you cannot minimize these components just by how they look or where you think they should place on the planet. Or if you think they're an invader, or you think they're from outside influences. It says here, characterized by extensive admixture and differentiation of the North African area from the rest of the African continent, the study of classical genetic markers compiled in the seminal work by Cavalli et al. Evidenced the differentiation of North Africa from the rest of the continent. This is shown in the first component of the African principal component analysis, which suggested a North African demographic history more related to the outer Africa population. In a specific North African compilation of classical markers, Bosch et al. Also showed the distinction of North African in comparison to other African groups and pointed to a gradient of genetic diversity in an east to west axis. As a result of human movements limited by the Mediterranean Sea and the Sahara Desert, the uniparental marker analysis, mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome, have also evidenced the uniqueness of North Africa within the continent and the admixture of lineages from neighboring areas. The presence of uniparental lineages that originated in Sub-Saharan Africa. So you do have Sub-Saharan African markers in North Africa. The Middle East or Europe suggests a complex pattern of gene flow toward North Africa. However, autochthonous lineages, here's the point that I want to make here. Autochthonous lineage, I mean people that belong and developed there for thousands of years. Lineages have also been described in the region, pointing to extensive admixture of local and external groups with different gradients and lineages in the area. So these people that you're calling and classifying invaders, they don't belong, they come from the Arabs, they've been there thousands of years, and a lot of these people are considered autochthonous. It says here, maybe I don't know what autochthonous is. Hold on, I can't just skip over that. Maybe because you guys don't really do any research. You guys just echo sentiments all the goddamn time. So how about we just go to what the word autochthonous means? Maybe I'm just speaking. Maybe I'm just speaking Afro-Asiatic or something. We speak PIE languages here, so maybe something going on. I mean, that's a disconnect.
Autochthonous.
What does autochthonous mean? Of an inhabitant of a place, indigenous rather than descended from migrants or colonists. Yeah, you got North Africans that fit that definition. I want to be clear on that. Let's go back. So again, Autochthonous lineages have also been described in the region, pointing to extensive admixture of local and external groups with different gradients of lineages in the area. During the last decade, the analysis of genome-wide SNPs refined our knowledge about the North African genetic landscape and reinforced the idea of complex demographic patterns of admixture and isolation in the region that differentiated it from the rest of the African continent. This idea has also been corroborated by the analysis of still limited data on complete genomes from ancient and modern samples. The North African genetic component. Genetic data from current day populations suggests a complex pattern of admixture with a minimum of 4 main sources of genetic ancestry for North African people. And it all first showed the presence of an autochthonous ancestral component, also known as the Maghrebi component, as well as European, Middle Eastern, and Sub-Saharan components in the current North African population. This result showed that North African populations exhibit their own ancestral component and cannot be considered as the result of mere admixture or exogenous ancestries from neighboring regions. I hope the racists are watching this, and I hope my brother Hebrew Hood is watching. They're learning that you cannot just put the sole ancestry on North Africans as being external or invaders, and especially albeit a product of the Islamic intervention or expansion. Just does not work. They have an autochthonous component, meaning ancestors, let's put it in plain terms, ancestors that have been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years prior to the invention or advent of Islam or the Arabic faith. It says here, this component is related to an early North African population that diverged from the rest of the outer Africa groups predating the Holocene, more than 12,000 years ago. The component was possibly introduced in a Back to Africa movement already suggested by the mitochondrial DNA, this is the women they're discussing here, haplogroups U6 and M1. And more recently, nuclear data, it is distributed in a west to east declining gradient across the region. Later studies confirmed the presence of this autochthonous component by comparing current day genomes with data from ancient and anatomically modern human samples recovered from different locations in North Africa. This analysis refined the sources of ancestry in current North Africa populations, adding a Caucasian, Hunter-Gatherer, Neolithic, Iranian-related component, and locating a possible origin of the autochthonous North African component in Epipaleolithic or early Neolithic times, given that it's prevalent in Moroccan Epipaleolithic early Neolithic samples. All right, maybe some of that. Yeah, a Caucasian hunter-gatherer, Neolithic Iranian component, a autochthonous component related to the Epipaleolithic and early Neolithic time that's been there for a long time. It's been there for a long damn time. Now, let's move on to the ancient genomes in North Africa. The retrieval of stone artifacts and cut mark bones from an archaeological. Hold on. How could I pass that up? This will also explain that the phenotype variation in North Africa has been there for a long time because you got these groups in there that are included. Because so lighter skin groups, aquiline noses, different morphological cranial shapes would have been there as well. I need to do a whole video on that. Anyway, the retrieval of stone artifacts and cut mark bones from archaeological site in Algeria places the first peopling of North Africa around 2.4 million years ago, whereas direct bone dating of the oldest human remains from the Moroccan site of Jebel Irhoud points to 300,000 years ago. Many more fossils have been recovered in North Africa, but only for a few of them it has been possible to extract and analyze their genome. The Tafra site in Morocco, dated between 15,000 and 13,900 calibrated years before present, is the oldest site to date to yield DNA data, not only in North Africa, but in Africa as a whole. The analyzed Tafra individuals show high affinity toward Near Eastern populations, especially Epipaleolithic Natufians, with whom they share 63.5% of their ancestry on average. These individuals present mtDNA haplogroups U6 and M1 concordant with the pre-Holocene back to Africa event. So again, these people have been there. We're talking 15,000, 13,000 years ago. No, their female ancestry which we still see U6 within modern North Africa today. Been there that damn long. And here we go. This goes back to that image we saw. Oh, this lighter skinned woman, and we know she don't belong. Why? Because she's lighter skinned. She's probably U6. She could very well be U6 or any of these ancient variants that have been there for thousands of damn years. You can't just tell just by looking at somebody. Also, it says an ancient sub-Saharan ancestral component is also present, showing a higher affinity with Tafarat than with any combination of Yoruba and Natufian ancestors. Also, no gene flow from Paleolithic Europeans is observed. So within this old ancient Tafarat group of Morocco, dating to about 15,000 years ago, there is a sub-Saharan component. So people that are, like the Yoruba related to sub-Saharan people today, their ancestors were also in North Africa. That's the only way you could get that admixture. The only way you get genes from another people group is to admix, have sex with, sleep with, and reproduce with. So they got to be present. You can't Wi-Fi or email your damn genes. Anyway, that's for the races on the other side of the spectrum, right? It says, in addition to these ancient North African Epipaleolithic genomes, 5 individuals from early Neolithic Ifrin, Amir, or Amalsa site were analyzed together with 4 late Neolithic samples from Khalif El Baroud. The IM individuals, we're going to talk about this actually in detail here in a minute. The 7,000-year-old individuals show close genome-wide affinities with the Tafarat individuals. This was also supported by the presence of similar mtDNA haplogroups U6 and N1 associated with the back to Africa migration, suggesting a continuity between later Stone Age and early Neolithic populations in the Maghreb. So we're still long before Islam, long before Arab, way behind that. On the other hand, the genome analysis of the Keb population suggests that it can be modeled as a mixture of IM and Anatolian European Neolithic, and this also presents a lower sub-Saharan component than the IM or Tafarat. So they have sub-Saharan components and have Anatolian and European components, showing you that the morphology and phenotype of these people have been varied dating 7,000 damn years ago. Mitochondrial and Y chromosome haplogroups in these samples are prominently found in Anatolian and European Neolithic samples. Recently, 2 7,000-year-old mtDNA samples have been extracted from the Takarkori rock shelter site in Libya and attributed to a newly identified haplotype in Africa in the basal branch of haplogroup N. So you've been having Eurasian or European components in North Africa for thousands of years. They're not invaders just because they exhibit these things. Again, they've been here for thousands of years. When is that part going to register? This haplotype could have arrived with a back to Africa event in the spread of pastoralism from the Levant, or it could have differentiated from the L3 haplogroup inside Africa and later spread out the continent. The Sahara aridification could have caused the isolation and survival of the haplotype in the Takarkori while being replaced in other parts of Africa. Now, we're going to move on to Egypt. Regarding Egypt, Schumann et al. Analyzed 151 individuals from the Abu Said el Malik settlement, carbon dated from 1388 BCE to 395 CE. 90 mtDNA and 3 genome-wide SNP data samples show highly similar haplogroup profiles with low genetic distances between all samples, supporting the idea of genetic continuity in the region. The absence of sub-Saharan African mtDNA haplogroups in ancient samples as compared with modern Egyptians with 20% sub-Saharan mtDNA may be explained by recent sub-Saharan gene flow. Nuclear DNA data from these ancient Egyptians further supports these results and reveals a larger Neolithic Near Eastern component than in modern Egyptians, in agreement with the rest of North African ancient samples. Again, the Near Eastern, the Neolithic component that we're seeing from Anatolia and stuff of that nature has always been there, as you can see through ancient Egyptians. It has shit to do with modern Islamic expansions from the 7th century onward, as we just read the dates, were 1388 BCE to 395 CE, well before Arabs and the Arabic expansion. I gotta keep drilling that throughout the duration of this video because I know there's still a religious retard in the chat probably or watching this video that is still trying to hold on to this archaic and debasing ideology. Anyway, outside mainland Africa, other ancient DNA samples have been useful to assess the genetic ancestry of North African populations. The ancient Guanche samples from 7th to 11th centuries CE, analyzed by parental markers and whole genome data, suggest a North African origin of the Canary Islander settlers, based on the presence of mtDNA U6 and Y chromosome E1B1B haplogroups, which are autochthonous to North Africa, and a significant genetic component shared with Epipaleolithic North Africans in the whole genome data. Autosomal data shows a similar admixture profile as Moroccan Keb and are consistent with a single ancestral North African origin, but with possible small introgression events after the first settlement of the islands. Additionally, European ancient DNA samples from Iberia and Mediterranean islands confirm a widespread sporadic gene flow from North Africa to the north during the early Bronze Age. Again, we're way before the Islamic invention. We're way before the expansion. We see this mixing and this population existing prior to. If you leave this video, at least leave with that. Population replacement versus demographic continuity hypothesis. North Africa has been populated since the early stages of humankind, but these still limited ancient genomic data are only available since the Epipaleolithic populations of Tafaro, who might be considered direct descendants of the autochthonous population of North Africa. The continuity of this autochthonous component until present time has been challenged by the constant gene flow into the region from neighboring population, which has partially replaced the original population of North Africa at different times during the Paleolithic and Neolithic ages and in historical times. Again, most people don't give a fuck about these two periods, which are way older, the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods, way older. We're talking about 1,000, 10,000, 15, 20,000 years ago, and just focus on the historical times, your Romans and your Arabs. Gene flow in prehistoric times from the Middle Eastern Natufians has been observed. This gene flow coincided with the last humid period of the region, Sahara. It says, which could have eased the connection between both populations. The Sahara experienced strong climatic oscillations during the late Pleistocene and early Holocene, and what is known as the Holocene climatic optimum. Warmer and wetter environmental conditions appeared after the last glacial maximum from 12 to 5,000 years ago, leading to increased waterways, flora, fauna, plants, and animals that facilitated the spread of human groups across the Sahara. Later arid periods could have isolated some of these populations in refugia, causing the disappearance of genetic lineages due to genetic drift. Concerning the Neolithic transition, controversy exists with hypothesis defending either cultural diffusion of agriculture or replacement of the indigenous hunter-gatherer populations with Neolithic groups. The demic diffusion hypothesis has traditionally been accepted as a neolization mechanism in North Africa, with Middle Eastern populations suggested as the source of the transition. Although contact with Iberian populations during the late Neolithic has also been observed, nonetheless, recent analysis of contemporary genomes and their comparisons with the Tafaro remains, as well as the endemic elements shared between Tafaro and early Neolithic Ifri and Amir or Mausa genomes, has shown a continuity of Paleolithic component in North Africa. Maybe I need to read that again. Maybe everything else is gibberish to you. Continuity. I mean, these people have been there for a damn long time. Of the Paleolithic, this is very old, 15,000, 20,000 years ago. So in present-day people, a component of people living there 15,000, 20,000 years ago still exists within the modern population, showing you that they are not a sole product of the Arabic expansion, showing that these people have ancestors that have been in North Africa for thousands of years. And there has been admixture, but even that is older than the Arabic expansion. As we brought up the ancient Anatolian component, the Iranian component that we see, the European component that we see in here. They've been there for thousands of years. Let's continue reading. Although this autochthonous Paleolithic component is much lower than the Paleolithic component observed in current Europeans, Therefore, although the impact of the Neolithic was dramatic in North Africa, it did not completely erase the autochthonous component, thereby also suggesting that cultural diffusion had taken place before the demic diffusion. And that's what we see today, like the Arabization of Africans. It's mainly cultural, not demic. Why? How do we know this? Because a lot of the haplogroups and the people groups don't trace back solely to Arabs. A lot of them, to this day, still trace back to ancient North Africans. Same thing in West Africa. A lot of West Africans have been culturally introgressed into Islam, to an Arabic language, to an Arabic faith. But that does not say that the whole of the population descends from Arabs. You know, that's just a silly and hasty, faulty conclusion, a generalization. Anyway, Eurasian gene flow after neolithialization seems to have had a lower genetic impact, as shown by Sarah Vidal et al. The post-Neolithic movements with high genetic impacts on the regions are a sub-Saharan gene flow, which was mainly due to trans-Saharan slave trade routes from the Roman period, 1st century BC, through the Arab conquest lasting until the 19th century, and the Arabization, which started in the 7th century and introduced gene flow from the Middle East across all of North Africa, thereby contributing to shape the east to west climate of Middle Eastern component found in current North Africa. So again, this is the main one everyone talks about. No one talks about the neolithialization. And it's saying that these components are lower than the Eurasian gene flow from the neolithialization components. So, because right here, Eurasian gene flow after neolithialization seems to have had a lower genetic impact. Lower. So all these events that we just listed out has a lower impact after the events that happened in the Neolithic. But for some fucking reason, well, ain't no some reason, you're unlearned in the subject. That's the problem. You don't study demography, which is the study of human migration, right? You don't study none of these damn things. You don't study genetics. You don't study none of this stuff because you believe your ideology is supreme and king, and that's all you need. You just need to believe in whatever the hell you believe in. You know, there's no further studying required with Black Hebrew Israelites and Afrocentrics. But let me read it again. Eurasian gene flow after neolithialization seems to have had a lower genetic impact. It says here, other historical movements had only minor impacts on the genetic history. These movements include the arrivals of Phoenicians, Romans, Vandals, Byzantine, Ottoman Turks, and other Mediterranean European populations. These are all low genetic factors. Long before this, you had Europeans in North Africa. Long before this, you had the autochthonous North Africans there. Long before any of these events. And these modern events are lower. Oh my God. Then it goes into the cultural and genetic differentiation between Arabs and Amazigh, showing that you can't just use culture. Some people always try to use culture to try to determine their ancestry as well, but you can't because people that have been Arabicized and those people that do follow older Berber tradition, you really can't tell the difference between the two. And that's what that's going to go into. But from there, y'all can read the rest of this on your own. We're going to go, let's go to our friend Wiki real quick. Let me go there. Let's go to Wiki real quick before we continue. I think we drove this thing home already. No, I didn't. Close. Oh, here it is. So this is the genetic history of North Africa, right? Here are the haplogroups, the male haplogroups of North Africa. Some of them that we have discovered. Let's look at them. In Morocco, we already discussed the EM78. This is a Topharots. They call this Afro-Levantine, and we have 6 samples with that E1B1B. Then we would go later on into the cardio culture, 7,400, 6,900 years ago. What do you have here? What does that say? G2. This is long before Islam. This is long before anything. G2. What is it classified as genetically? European. They've been there a long goddamn time. G2, European. Shout out to the Tail Twins. Your ancestors were in North Africa for at least 7,500 years. So when you see people today possibly have G2, you can't automatically say, oh, you come from invaders. These people invaded. No, they could have been there for 7,500 years. EL19, another E1B1B variant here. 11 was found there 7,500 years ago. Also, proto-beaker culture being found in North Africa. And you have two of the haplogroup T markers are 11, and one of them are European. Again, this is long before Arabic intervention, all that shit, long before that. And having G2 in Morocco could also explain why we see it here in Egypt later on, 3,300 years before present. Right? With Yuya. And don't even get me started with the Egyptians. We know R1B was there, as you can see. We know it was in Amenhotep, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun. Right? This is the one racist white supremacists hate. EV38. They hate seeing that Ramesses associated with E1B1A. And Pentawar, his putative son, is E1B1A. Again, J1, long before the Arabs in Egypt, 2,800 years ago. J2, long before the Arabs in Egypt, 2,800 years ago. And then the Tunisian samples, which they label Phoenician, J2, 2,800 years, R1B, J2, J2. So just because you see J markers in North Africa today does not mean they automatically have to be the descendants of the Arabic or Islamic expansion. They always been in North Africa, as evidenced by the skeletal remains in North Africa, as we're reading here. G2 in Algeria, EV22. These people are always, and some of y'all have the nerve to say, "Oh, E1B1B or they've been there." What are you talking about? They're an Islamic invasion. Shut the fuck up. We don't have enough people saying this to you guys. You pseudos out there. Shut the fuck up. We don't have y'all. Everybody's why would you talk to them like they need to be talked to like that? Because again, no one's streaming reality to these people. You either curtail and be quiet and go along and get along, or you just agree in silence. You acquiesce to the damn points. Anyway, so from there, let's briefly go here. What does that say here? Northwest African Neolithic initiated by migrants from Iberia and Levant. Published last year, 2023, June 7. Luciana et al. Or Samosa et al. Abstract. In Northwestern Africa, lifestyle transitioned from foraging to food production around 7,400 years ago. But what sparked that change remains unclear. Archaeological data support conflicting views that migrant European Neolithic farmers brought the new way of life to North Africa, or local hunter-gatherers adopted technological innovations. The latter view is also supported by archaeogenetic data. Here we will fill key chronological and archaeogenetic gaps for the Maghreb from epipaleolithic to middle Neolithic by sequencing the genomes of 9 individuals. Notably, we trace 8,000 years of population continuity. There goes that word continuity again. So again, this is 8,000 years. I mean, everybody in North Africa ain't a product of Arabs. And as we read in the last article, these modern interventions like 7th century Arabic expansion, Roman expansion, all those things have a lesser impact on the genetics of North Africans than these older European Neolithic interventions and Levantine interventions and the autochthonous component that we find in North Africa. It says, however, remains from the earliest Neolithic context showed mostly European Neolithic ancestry. Whoa, wait a minute. 7,000 years ago, you have North Africans and Europeans? Wait a minute. You're not going to learn that from your fucking Black Hebrew Israelite cult member. You're not going to learn that from Elder Nathaniel, General Johanna. You're not going to learn that. That these people that y'all been calling invaders have been there for 75 years. You're not going to learn that. We suggest that farming was introduced by European migrants and was then rapidly adopted by local groups. During the Middle Neolithic, a new ancestry from the Levant appears in the Maghreb, coinciding with the arrival of pastoralism in the region, and all three ancestries blend together during the late Neolithic. And that's why I said, man, a diversity kicks the racists in the ass. Diversity always, because again, what I say is these three ancestries blend together. Y'all don't like that because you have these race ideas, and these race ideas insist on homogeny. Everybody have to be the same. No, most of human history, even with sub-Saharan Africans, you claim to be so isolated, is a composite of ancestries. Different groups coming together. You have North Africans there. You have people that are A and B haplogroups, ancient hunter-gatherers there. You have RV88 groups. These are ancient people from the Balkans, from Europe, in the midst of West Africans that have been there for thousands of years. You have T markers coming from the Levantine region and Cameroon. Most people on the planet are a composite of ancestries, not of one sole ancestry. And that's the same thing that we see with North Africans. And this is why you guys are puzzled and you come with these broad sweeping claims. Everybody in North Africa are products of the Arab. And no, they're not. Anyway. Our results show ancestry shifts in the neolization of northwestern Africa that probably mirrored a heterogeneous economic and cultural landscape. Let me read that again. Heterogeneous, we're dealing with, and a more multifaceted process than observed in other regions. North Africa's geographic, let me read this. Genome sequence of 9 individuals shows ancestry shifts in the neolization of northwestern Africa that probably mirrored a heterogeneous economic and cultural. Oh, we read that already. North Africa's geographic location centered between the vast Saharan desert, the fertile Near East, and Mediterranean Europe has resulted in a complex human history in the area. Fossil records suggest long-term hominid and human presence, although continuity over the past 100,000 years cannot be deduced due to the fragmented nature of the record. In the late Pleistocene, 15,000 years ago, the remains of foragers excavated in Morocco show a distinct genetic makeup of intermediate between contemporary Levantine foragers and sub-Saharan African populations. Current-day North Africans are largely related to Eurasian populations, which is probably caused by back to Africa migrations. And again, these back to Africa migrations is not solely Arabic, as you guys keep trying to say. No, this is ancient Neolithic shit that we're talking about. Anyway, we keep reading. Both archaeological records and archaeogenomic data show that Neolithic farmers, genetically distinct from European foragers, dispersed from the northern Levant and Anatolia to the Mediterranean islands, Italian peninsula in Iberia. Mediterranean coastal routes have long been recognized in the archaeological record as an important part of Neolithic expansion in Europe. In the Western Mediterranean, impressed wear technology and further the cardial horizon spread along the European mainland coast and islands to reach the Iberian Peninsula, where both phenomena are present at 7,550 calibrated years before present. Whereas some studies support simultaneous appearance of the Neolithic in the northwestern Africa and Iberia around 7,550 calibration BP. The earliest evidence for pottery, domestic cereals, and husbandry is found in northern Morocco approximately 2 centuries later at Kaftat el Gar, around 7,350 years before present. Although early Neolithic material culture in the first domestic mammal and pulses suggest a connection to Iberia, the extent and legacy of these connections remain unclear. However, the first genomic analysis of early Neolithic farmers from northwestern Africa shows no traces of admixture with European Neolithic farmers. Instead, it shows a long-term population continuity since the Upper Paleolithic in the region. So the person that just asked the question, who would be the original people? That should have answered your question. There's population continuity since Paleolithic times. That's 15,000 years ago. Continuity means still remaining to today. That should answer your question, Cedric. A lot of those people that are deemed by Black Hebrew Israelites and Afrocentrics as invaders are the original people of North Africa. Anyway, this result aligns with the hypothesis that the Neolithic transition in northwestern Africa was initiated by local epipaleolithic communities adopting technological innovations, such as those found at IAM and pressed cardio-like ceramics, similar to those present throughout the Western Mediterranean, Neolithic Europe, and domestic cereals. This pattern implies a neolization process that contrasts markedly with that of Europe, where it has been established that agriculture was introduced by the West and northward demic diffusion of Anatolian early farmers. The local development or acculturation of North African Neolithic is further supported by signs of increasingly sedentary epipaleolithic groups developing strategies for resource management, such as exploitation of wild plants and pottery. Rapid climatic changes favored mobile herding, and whereas it has been hypothesized that cattle were independently domesticated in the Sahara. Radiocarbon data suggests gradual introduction of pastoralism in the Sahara southwestwards direction, 7,000, 6,000 years before present, possibly from the Near East. Whereas paleogenomic studies on the European Mediterranean Neolithic transitions are abundant, North Africa has been the focus of only a single study that generated human genetic data from one early and one late Neolithic site, leaving substantial gaps in chronology of events. It is evident that the site of IAM shows Neolithic lifestyle and absence of European Neolithic ancestry. But whether this was an independent development or inspiration came from other groups in northwestern Africa or across the Mediterranean Sea remains unclear. Hence, the timeline and processes involved in neolization of the region, the nature and dynamics of the different economies in North Africa, and the role they may have played in the broader European Neolithic remain understudied and controversial. In this study, we investigate time series of human remains from 4 archaeological sites spanning the Epipaleolithic or Middle Neolithic in current-day Morocco, the Epipaleolithic sites of Ifri, the early Neolithic sites of IAM and KTG, and Middle Neolithic cemetery of Eskage. Co-analyzed with previously published genetic data for that region by sequencing the genomes of 9 individuals excavated from these 4 archaeological sites, we can demonstrate that the Neolithic transition in Northwest Africa was ignited by the migration of Neolithic farmers from Mediterranean Europe. Again, this is long before Islam. Because remember, on the post, let me go back to the post real quick. Maybe y'all forgot. We've been reading for a minute. On this post, people were claiming that this was because of the Arab invasion. What were they claiming? That the reason why you have lighter skinned people like this to the right is because of the Arab invasion. That was the claim. This was the main claim. And that North Africans will have to be inundated with people like this to the left. These are the originals. To the right are the fakes that are a product of Islam. This is all false. That's the whole reason I'm going through this whole spiel with you guys. This is all false. The skeletal remains in the ground prove it to be false. And again, the paper that I'm reading is telling you about the samples that I just showed you here. Remember the cardio that we were just saying? G2, haplogroup G2 in North Africa, 7,500 years ago, classified as European. Haplogroup T, classified as European. Proto-beaker. Put that in your damn pipe and smoke it. Put it in your pipe and smoke it. So bullish Prince of Wales Wait a minute. Oh, okay. I see what you did there. You don't mean you mean like the animal, not the. Oh my God, this dude's crazy. Anyway, why haplogroup J is a Japhetic line, most likely from Javan. The native Javanese also possessed this haplotype in high numbers on the island. He also says this here. Invader isn't the proper term. Perhaps ancient encroachers is more appropriate. I don't know, man, because you're still trying to give a negative annotation to it. So let's look. Encroachers. What does it mean to encroach? Intrude on a person's territory and think it's to be a right. No, they're not encroachers, bro. If that's the case, everybody on the planet is an encroacher in some way, shape, or form. They're not ancient encroachers. I didn't get that. I don't get that, man. Maybe you cleared it up for me. The point of this video is that North Africans are not a sole product of just Arab invaders from the 7th century CE. The point is that these people have been there for thousands of damn years. The European components were introduced thousands of years ago. The Levantine components that we see in North Africa were introduced thousands of years ago. And the Iberian component was introduced thousands of years ago. They have been there for that long. So anyone trying to attribute modern North African people to just the Arabs of the 7th century are wrong. They're wrong. They're false. Look at the dates on the damn screen. 15,000. In Egypt, like it's a mess in Egypt because a lot of you guys were hoping it will reflect some kind of sub-Saharan African dynasty, and it doesn't. It's highly Eurasian. Bullish says, I'm saying that it went against the ancient pact that was created with Noah and his sons. Jaffa seems to be out of their natural place in North Africa. I don't get that because even from a biblical standpoint, they were told to go populate the earth. It wasn't told. No one else. At least show me the verse. I don't get. That's why I like getting to these biblical arguments. A lot of it's going to be headcanon at the end of the day that you're going to argue with me with. I don't see it. It just says they had to go populate the planet. You want me to read Genesis 9 real quick? And we want to have a biblical discussion real quick. They were just told to go populate the planet. He didn't say that, hey, don't cross this goddamn line right here. Don't go into North Africa, you wicked motherfucker. It don't say that. You know? Let's see. Genesis 9, repopulate the earth. Let's see. That's what it says. Yeah, just like I said. Now be fruitful and multiply and repopulate the earth. This is Genesis 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and told them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, all the animals of the earth, all the birds of the sky, all the small animals that scurry along the ground. I don't get it. Fill the earth. Go fill the earth. That's what the scriptures say. So if you want to have a biblical argument, which this video is not about a biblical argument, this video is just simply about ancestry. But even from a biblical standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. Now be fruitful and multiply and repopulate the earth. Do you discredit the book of Jubilees? Book of Jubilees is, the book of Jubilees is a pseudepigrapha. I don't know what else to say. Well, your idea, the word ethnic group, you say different ethnic people mixing, doesn't even encapsulate what I'm trying to say to you today. Because you can be of the same ethnic group and still be of different ancestral backgrounds. You can still be of different ancestral backgrounds. Cedric Bennett says, what did the original people look like in your opinion? What do you mean? You mean the further you go back in time, I addressed that earlier. Let me see. Let me pull the article up for you, brother. So this is the paper I shared earlier. The further you go back in time, the darker and more robust people get. Can you see that? Central Eurasia, they don't get lighter until after 10,000 years ago. You go further back in time, they get darker. Okay, I understand that. That's why I'm going over. I'm just going to go over it again for you, Cedric. All people on the planet descend from darker groups. Northern and northwestern Europe, the further you go back in time, they get darker. They don't get pale until about 7,000 years ago. As you can see right here, a positive selection for SLC2485, which is the gene that is believed to be responsible for pale skin or depigmentation, rather. East Asia is the same thing. They're relatively dark 50,000 years ago, and they get lighter as time expands. Within the last 20 to 10,000 years, they say that KITLG variant may be the reason why they're light today. Beringia is a little different because they're getting some of these lighter skin. They're lighter, but they're not pale. They actually get darker over time. The Americas, they've been relatively brown throughout their existence. So yeah, I covered this in the beginning about the hypothetical skin pigmentation timeline. Where's the one with the Arab? East African. I think that's the East African one. Let me go up. Yeah, but I dealt with this. Like anybody, like we all come from darker populations. I talked about the Melanesian Australians possibly getting darker due to their Denisovian ancestry. South Africans, as you can see, got darker due to the Bantu expansion. They're relatively lighter before then. West Africans have been dark. East Africans dark. But here's the thing about the East Africans, that they have the introduction of European SLC 2485 dating about 9 to 3,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And they're still dark. So that's just how genes and alleles work, man. And it's even believed that this component could have started right here. Look, watch this. The generalization timeline of main events in the evolution of skin pigmentation in Africa by region. After originating around 0.3 million years ago, well, 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens evolved in Africa only until about 80,000 years ago, when some dispersals from northeastern Africa into the Afro-Arabian Peninsula occur. In East Africa, continued purified selection of MC1R variant is accompanied by positive selection of variants of DDB1, MFD12 leads to darker pigmentation. The introduction of the classic depigmentation SLC2485 variant around 9,000 years ago via the Afro-Arabian Peninsula sees its rapid dispersal southward. So this is already introduced long ago, this depigmentation allele. In West Africa, purified selection on MC1R variants continues, accompanied by positive selection on variants DDB1 and NFSD12 producing darker pigmentation. In South Africa, among the coastline hunter-gatherers, relaxation selection on MC1R is accompanied by positive selection on SLC2485 introduced from northeastern Africa. So this is why they would be lighter, and this is why it's believed they're lighter today, right? The Khoisan. The dispersal of darkly pigmented Bantu language-speaking agriculturists from Western and Central Africa from 5,000 years onward, and their admixture with Khoisan hunter-gatherers leads to the evolution of complexity mixed pigmentation genotypes, a wide range of mildly pigmented phenotypes. In simple terms, when the Bantus came in 3,000 to 5,000 years ago into South Africa, they mixed with the locals and made them darker. They introduced darker pigmentation. So I'll give you the paper. You can read this on your own. I did cover this in the beginning of the video and the onset. Okay. You don't have to go back and watch it from the beginning. I covered it for you again, essentially. And I just gave you the paper. So Bullish Prince of Wales says, I don't stand on the argument that what the Catholic Church hid away in the vault, etymology or apocrypha, some how not from the ancient strolls of our lineage. The reason why I don't consider pseudepigrapha in these type of biblical conversations, again, this is not a biblical video. I'm not even dealing with that, but I only addressed and entertained it because you brought it up. It's because the pseudepigrapha works that always brought it into question have no ancient ancestors to go off of. So it's like these are all modern prints. We don't know where these people come from, who wrote it, what was the intention. What's up, Jubilees? Jubilees is in the I believe that's in the Dead Sea. But I might be wrong. I have to fact check it. It might be in the Dead Sea. But still, even with that, it's like, okay, that could have been an invention at that time. There's no way to give it credit. And some of the things that are being said is so vastly contrasting towards the original canon. I don't know how to go with that. So that's why I don't really vibe with that. But again, this is not a biblical discussion. What I want you to get from this video is that North Africans are not the sole product of Arabic invaders, because that's what's being said and permeated and promulgated on the social media networks like Facebook, Twitter by Afrocentrics. All right. But anyway, let's go. Let me see if I can go back to this, at least give you a conclusion. So we were in this article dealing with the European introgression being older than the Arabic introgression or the invention of Islam, right? They basically give you the haplogroups as we read earlier. Here's the haplogroups here. Summary information, archaeological, newly generated genomic data from ancient individuals reported in the study. And again, you see U6. We read earlier that U6 has an ancient presence in North Africa. So again, you might see a lighter skinned woman. Oh, she don't belong there. If she's U6, she's been there for a long damn time. Look, an H variant, HVO plus 0195. They've been there for a long time. U5. J1, that's another European mitochondrial DNA, being in North Africa 7,300 years ago. U6, same thing. M1, the ancient North African variants are here. J2, that's another European mitochondrial DNA, U6C. And then we had a T1A paternal haplogroup in the Middle Neolithic of North Africa. G2A, shout out to the tail twin. These are European migrants in North Africa. They've been there for a long damn time. So just because you see someone today with a certain morphology, certain phenotype that you don't associate with quote unquote African, that could have been there longer. See what I'm saying? Cedric says, I have a book that talks about the Arabs being black originally. I mean, that statement can be said about all people on the planet Earth, that they were black originally or darker originally. Here are the sites that were brought up: the IAM, the KTG, SKH, the KEB, in Morocco, the OUB, the TAF, Tafarat. And to the right is how they cluster with each other in modern groups. These are all Neolithic and Chalcolithic, older groups, all ancient groups, and how they cluster with each other. Early Neolithic are the square diamonds here, I believe. They're all clustering with each other. Late Neolithic, the KEB, they're up here, the triangles. But you guys can go over this, man. I'm not gonna continue to, I'm not gonna read this thing in its entirety. I want you guys to get the basic understanding that these people have been there for eons, long before the advent of the Arabic expansion. 8,000 years of population continuity. I could just read this portion to you. Population continuity. So when you ask, what are these people there? Are they Arabs? There's your answer. There's your answer. Population continuity. They've been there. They continued, their ancestors were there, and they continue to persist through their progeny to today. That's what continuity means. 8,000 years of population continuity. Anyway, let's keep reading. From the Upper Paleolithic people of Tafarat via the Epipaleolithic OUB to the early Neolithic and IAM, we observed the persistence of unique genetic makeup that existed in northwestern African inhabitants 15,000 years ago, and possibly even further back in time. The Epipaleolithic individual OUB-002 dating to 7,660 to 7,506 BP is genetically very similar to individuals from Topharoth, 15,000 to 14,000 years before present. In early Neolithic individuals from IAM, 7,316 to 6,679 years before present, the genome of OUB-002 demonstrates a marked population continuity in Northwest Africa with no substantial gene flow across the Mediterranean Sea for at least 7,000 years across the Epipaleolithic, linking the Maghrebi genetic ancestry found in Upper Paleolithic to the early Neolithic individuals at the IAM. Maghrebi lineage shows outstandingly low genetic diversity, probably as a consequence of long-lasting isolation. By investigation of the 45.8-fold genome of OUB-002, we show that the ancient Northwest Africans went through a severe population bottleneck until some 70,000, 60,000 years ago. The effective population size change of OUB-002 followed a pattern similar to that of Eurasian populations, with a relatively small effective population size reached 50,000 years ago, which is consistent with the Maghrebi lineage being related to population that migrated out of Africa. Interestingly, modern-day Eurasians and North Africans, as well as Neolithic Eurasian effective population size, remained at around 5,000 until about 30,000 years ago. But the effective population size of Maghrebi lineage continues to decrease and reached its lowest point between 50,000 and 27,000 years ago during the peak of the last glaciation. Remarkably, similar patterns are also observed with Mesolithic Western hunter-gatherers of Europe, for which low diversity measures have been attributed to high levels of background relatedness and autozygosity due to small population size. So just another way to connect these people to some of these Europeans, ancient Europeans. European farmers induced neolithization. At the site of IAM, a multitude of artifacts representing the Neolithic package have been identified. However, it has been shown that people living in IAM show autochthonous Maghrebi ancestry, and were the descendants of earlier Upper Paleolithic and Epipaleolithic Northwest African groups. These two observations support the view that the first stage of Neolithic transition in Morocco was driven by local populations adopting technological innovation based on the contacts across the Mediterranean. And what are those autochthonous components? We've already showed you and discussed that. U6, M1, U6, U5, U6, we know those are the toxins. We know U and M were with the Topharoth individual. So this is showing a genetic continuity that people have been there. Anyway, let me continue. Go back down. Where was I? The early Neolithic site of KTG, located on the North African Mediterranean coast near Gibraltar Strait, predates the partly overlaps in time with the IAM. At KTG, a full Neolithic assemblage is found, including diversity of cultivated cereals, domestic mammals, and cardio ceramics. In contrast to the people of IAM, those at KTG are genetically similar to European early Neolithic populations. Interestingly, all four KTG individuals show admixture 15.4 to 7.4% with local North African groups, consistent with significantly positive values for the F4 test of admixture. Furthermore, we identify a small proportion of Western hunter-gatherer ancestry in the KTG, consistent with the observation of early Neolithic Europeans carrying Western hunter-gatherer ancestry. So again, reinforce it. These Europeans have been in North Africa a long time, long before Arabs, long before Islam. A population history model of KTG people with 72 plus or minus 4.4% Anatolian Neolithic ancestry, 10 plus or minus 2.6% Western hunter-gatherer ancestry, and 18 plus minus 3.3% Maghrebi ancestry is consistent with the data. Taken together, these results suggest a European Neolithic origin of the KTG farmers whose ancestors dispersed from Anatolia throughout Europe and mixing with European hunter-gatherers on their path to southwestern Europe before crossing the Mediterranean to North Africa. The presence of European hunter-gatherer ancestry excludes the possibility that the early Neolithic migrants exclusively followed North African Mediterranean shores from Anatolian or the Levant. These are definitely people that were in Europe, definitely early European farmer related, and they later migrated and matriculated into North African regions, in particular KTB of Morocco. Anyway, Al-Azhar. Who is this Al-Azhar here? He said, Cedric, the original Arabian, all original people were black. Maybe you just came into the fold. Maybe you just came into the discussion. Every single human population on the planet, ancestry is going to go and trace back to black or darker humans. Every single one. So it's a moot point to say Arabians were black. The original Arabians were black. The ancestors of these people, everybody has that same history. But the problem is the idea is this. The idea is, if you're darker, you're original, or if you're white, you're false, or you're aliens, or you're migrants. Everybody's a migrant. That you're invaders, or somebody used the word encroaching earlier. That's the issue that we're addressing today. That's the issue we're dealing with North Africans, because people always come to this conclusion because they were taught by Abba Bivens or Elder Nathaniel, General Yohana to think this damn way, or Umar Johnson to think this way, or Professor James Small. It's a laundry list of these pseudos on the internet teaching you to think color first and think race first. Very racialized view, very racist. They got these ideas from 19th century white supremacists, but don't want to be called a white supremacist. Anyway. As you can see the different gene flow. You see Levantine ancestry going to the KB. European Neolithic ancestry, as we read earlier, KTG has that. And we see the autochthonous Maghrebi ancestry within these people as well. And you see when it was introduced to the time scale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't get too far ahead of you. Iberian early Neolithic, both as a whole regionally, was found to be the best source population for the European ancestry in KTG, followed by Sicily, Stantinello, early Neolithic. This is consistent with low levels of genetic differentiation and cardio-wear-associated groups along the European shores of the Mediterranean Sea, confirmed by direct radiocarbon dates showing that impressed ware farmers expanded rapidly across the Western Mediterranean. It has been debated whether European farmers crossed from Iberia to Morocco or whether earlier crossing of the Mediterranean would have happened through the Sicilian-Tunisian Strait followed by the Maghrebi route of expansion. Direct comparisons of early Neolithic farmers from Sicily and Iberia as ancestors of KTG farmers provide stronger evidence for the Iberian Neolithic origin. But we cannot exclude some contributions from Sicilian farmers. Genetic data are consistent with the most parsimonious explanation for archaeological evidence on the Neolithic transition in northwestern Africa, the crossing from southern Iberia by Iberian Neolithic farmers. The close geographical proximity between southern Iberia and the Tangitana Peninsula adds strength to this observation, whereas the lack of reliable archaeological evidence of early domestic elements and relevant sites along the eastern Maghreb and Tunis, including sites with pottery and obsidian from Pantelleria Island, undermines the Sicily-Tunis crossing hypothesis. Interestingly, gene flow from North Africa was found only in Mediterranean European individuals much later, from around 4,500 years ago. Different individuals from the KTG date slightly different time periods. We find twofold larger proportions of Maghrebi ancestors in earlier KTG individuals than in later ones. This coincides with an increase in European Neolithic ancestry shown by the significantly negative results of the F statistics. Approximately 1/4 of Maghrebi ancestry in early KTG suggests that they represent at least a second generation of interbreeding between the groups. We estimated the time of admixture using two approaches based on the ancestry covariance patterns and linkage disequilibrium decay using Iberia or Sicily early Neolithic and TAF as admixture sources. Both methods date the contact within the last 6 to 13 generations, suggesting that mixing between groups occurred for a few hundred years, which is consistent with analysis of pottery style that points to the first contact at 7,500 to 7,400 years ago. The KTG farmers had slightly lower genetic diversity levels and greater ROH than most early Neolithic European populations. The Maghrebi ancestry carried by the KTG people shows markedly lower diversity and more extensive ROH, and is probably the cause of the reduction of overall diversity. Archaeological evidence suggests that early Neolithic farming was restricted to enclaves in the westernmost Maghreb, possibly due to climatic constraints to the south. This can have limited the potential of these groups to recover from initial founder effect. Overall, the genetic patterns of local interactions between different groups in northwestern Africa are comparable to those found in Europe. Farmers assimilated in local foragers' ancestry in a unidirectional admixture process. Case of hunter-gatherer communities adopted certain elements of Neolithic have been described in Europe. However, the northwestern Africa neolithic process involved a notable survival of genetically unadmixed local populations represented by the IAM, despite coexisting for at least 300 years with foreign farming communities, KTG, and still adopted several elements of the Neolithic ways of living from them. Whereas the archaeological findings in IAM and KTG point to the exchange of ideas between groups in support of our cultivation process of foraging communities, our genetic data show that the exchange of genes was unidirectional. So, I mean, yeah, let's finish this. Let's finish. Why not? Influx of Levantine ancestry. Another distinct ancestry was introduced to northwestern Africa during the Middle Neolithic. All individuals from the SKH show large proportions of a genetic component maximized in the individuals from Neolithic and Chalcolithic Levant, Ptolemaic Egypt, and modern-day Near Eastern populations. The ancestry in SKH modeled as a two-way admixture between the Levant Neolithic populations, roughly 76.4 plus or minus 4%, and local Northwest Africans, represented by the Tafarat at 23.6 plus or minus 4%. If a European Neolithic, for example, from Iberia, additional source population is added, the model is rejected. So these people are definitely coming from the Levantine, and we go to the map so you can see what territory these people were found in. The SKH right here in northernmost part of West Africa. Northwest Africa. And with these people, look, it's far from the Levant, showing you that ancient migrants were highly mobile because the Levant is all the way to the right here, and they made their way all the way to the left here, all the way to the other side of the damn continent. So let's go back now and then wrap this up with a nice little bow. Because Neolithic Levantine ancestry has not been observed on the European side of the Mediterranean during the Neolithic, it probably represented independent expansion of people from the Levant into North Africa. Migrations from the Levant to Eastern Africa have been identified for Neolithic pastoralist individuals around 4,000 years ago, still well before the Arabic expansion, by the way, who are presumed descendants of unsampled Northeastern African populations associated with the spread of Saharan pastoralism. Both in the SKH and Eastern African Neolithic pastoralist, Levantine ancestry is admixed with local ancestries. The arrival of this Levantine ancestry coincides with the appearance of a new ceramic tradition in northern Morocco, often characterized by cord impression motifs, roulette or waving line, like the grave goods at Skarat belonging to the Ashakar ware pottery. In parallel, cattle pastoralism was expanding in the current Sahara territory, and Afro-Asian language groups spread throughout the whole of North Africa. Our analysis showed that Levantine associated component also remains in the Maghreb during the late Neolithic, and individuals from the Kef El Barud, the KEB, and the Guanches of the Canary Islands around 1,000 years before present. Individuals from these sites are shifted towards ancient Levantine populations on the principal component analysis space. This highlights the complex demographic process that took place in northwestern Africa, in contrast to the gradual increase in hunter-gatherer ancestry described in Middle and Late Neolithic Europe. The late Neolithic individuals from KEB can be modeled as a mix of ancestries already present in northwestern Africa. Then the early Neolithic and Middle Neolithic, suggesting that there were no ways of substantial migration into this region between the Middle Neolithic and Late Neolithic. Conclusion. Let's wrap this up, man. But I got one more article I want to deal with. And the article is going to address the opposite side of this argument, which is just as dumb as the argument I'm addressing now. The opposite side of the argument said there were no black people, there were no sub-Saharans in ancient North Africa. Just stupid. And now we're addressing that, all these white people come with the Arabs, which is another dumb argument. We just showed you 15,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago, there's a European element, there's a toxins element, there's a Levantine element. These people have always been mixed, they've always been diverse because, ancient people, humans in general, are highly mobile, they're migratory. If we weren't, we would still be in the same place where all our ancestors come from, wherever you want to attribute that to. You want to attribute that to Arabia, East Africa, wherever you want to say that point is, we will all be there because according to you guys, people don't fucking move. They don't migrate. They're stagnant. No, humans are highly mobile. As we can see, the whole planet has been, populated by us. So therefore, we've been moving for thousands of years. And that's what we're seeing here. And that's why diversity kicks the teeth out of the mouth of a racist. Anyway. The complex population structure in modern-day Northwest Africans has been linked to various historical events such as the Arab expansion. That's what we addressed, right? However, our detailed chronology and high-resolution genomic data provide a new understanding of these prehistoric processes in the Maghreb and unveil a rich and diversified genetic substrate with Neolithic origin. First human populations in Northwestern Africa show a genetic continuity and isolation since the Upper Paleolithic from at least 15,000 to around 7,500 years ago, when this period of isolation was interrupted by migration of early European Neolithic groups introducing farming practices. Hence, despite a relatively small geographic distance between southern Iberia and Northwest Africa, the distance today is only 13 kilometers across the Gibraltar Strait, and the fact that both regions were populated by foragers for many millennia prior to Neolithic, gene flow across the Mediterranean Sea was not established until the early Neolithic. The newcomers brought new ways of life, farming practices, domestication, and pottery traditions that were subsequently adopted by local populations. Our results show that the neolization process in Northwestern Africa was ignited by migrant Neolithic Europeans, but that local groups, at least the individuals analyzed at IAM, adopted some of these practices without mixing with the newcomers. Two genetically distinct groups coexisted in close proximity in the region. Interestingly, cultural and technological knowledge appear to have been transferred mainly from European Neolithic farmers to local groups, whereas genetic ancestry flowed from local groups to the incoming farmers, such as the population of KTG. Furthermore, in the Middle Neolithic, a new ancestry with an Eastern origin is detected in Northwestern Africa. This ancestry indicates new migrating groups potentially associated with Sahara pastoralists, which had mixed with local groups. The various waves of migration and admixture into Northwestern Africa during the Neolithic possibly resulted in heterogeneous economic and cultural landscape in that region, a mosaic of groups. A mosaic. I want y'all to get that. A mosaic. Because you guys love homogeny and y'all love racial purist arguments all goddamn day. A mosaic of groups. Maybe let me define that real quick. Because let me rewind that so we can define it. What does it mean to be a mosaic? Let's get that. Definition. Mosaic is usually a picture pattern produced by arranging together small color pieces, hard materials such as stone, tile, or glass. In biology, an individual, especially an animal, composed of cells of two genetically different types. So I guess a mosaic is a bunch of things put together, man. Distinct things put together. That's diversity. That's what the term mosaic is telling you there. Anyway. Let's go back to the paper. So, as I was reading right here, a mosaic of groups that included incoming farmers from Iberia, foragers adopting farming practices, and Eastern pastoralists admixing with local people. Most of these groups show a reduced effective population size and lower diversity than the contemporary populations in Europe, suggesting that population size remained modest throughout the Neolithic. These patterns were probably caused by periods of isolation, which may have contributed to distinct genetic ancestry seen in the Maghreb today. Today, these ancient components contribute to them today. So you can't sit up here and say they all came from an invasion of the Islamic regime and the Mohammedans. Shut the fuck up. A recent study from the Iron Age suggests that Northwestern Africa remained home to a diverse set of groups throughout prehistory, making this part of the world one of the most unique places to have been studied with archaeogenomic toolkits. Throughout prehistory, long before Muhammad, long before Islam, long before the Quran, long before the Holy Wars, long before the Arabic expansion, long before any of this shit, North Africans exhibit those phenotypes, craniotypes. They exhibit these different people groups coming from Europe, coming from the Levant. Some of them being autochthonous, as we read. Anyway, last article I want to go to is the one that was hinted towards right here about a recent study from the Iron Age suggesting Northwestern Africa remained home to a diverse set of groups throughout prehistory. And that paper is this one here. And I want to read the gene flow was patterned by historical factors. And that's the genetic history of continuity and mobility in the Iron Age, Central Mediterranean. This was published in 2022. And I will put this article in the chat like I put all the articles in the chat so you can read them your damn selves. This is not a church. This is not somewhere you're just going to echo sentiments. We want and inspire and encourage reading here and literacy here. So let's go now to the meat potatoes. I'm not going to stay all the way here. I'm not going to stay on this paper too long. I just want one segment. And that segment is within the discussion, I believe. Gene flow was patterned by historical factors. By integrating our research questions across the population of the Central Mediterranean, we are able to explore how these increasing rates of mobility across the Mediterranean contributed to the genetic history of the region. The high number of individuals with North African ancestry from central Italy may reflect the close connections between Carthage and the Etruscans, both through trade and also as allies facing common adversaries, especially Greek and Roman imperial expansion. Marahani et al. Estimated an earlier date, the Bronze Age or Iron Age, for African gene flow into Sardinia, Spain, Portugal, and northern Italy when compared to other parts of Europe. This is consistent with archaeological evidence of Punic expansion and connections between the Etruscans with Punic territories. Interestingly, while southern Italy is geographically closer to North Africa, it may not have been as integrated into the network of Carthaginian allies and key trading partners. In particular, our findings support and add temporal resolution to previous suggestions based on modern data that the Iron Age was a key time for trans-Mediterranean mobility and connectivity between regions we today call Northern Africa and Southern Europe. Supporting this, the presence of a number of individuals similar to contemporaneous Italian and Greek population at Kirkwine suggests a bidirectional movement of people, especially within the Central Mediterranean. So again, we're Iron Age, we're still before the advent of Muhammad, the Quran, and Islam, and holy wars and all that stuff, right? We're still behind that. The Iron Age appears to be a key period for the formation of current genetic structure of North Africa. Previous research suggests that present-day Central and Western North African populations can be modeled as having four primary ancestry components. A local autochthonous Maghrebi component. So when people say, well, who are the originals? You're looking at them. They have that component. They're autochthonous. They belong there. It derived from Paleolithic hunter-gatherer populations in the region. A Near Eastern component thought to have been introduced with the Arab rule of the region in the medieval period, and that's what most people jump to, right? They only worry about that component. It says a Sub-Saharan African component that was introduced in the last 5,000 years. Wait a minute. So for those that are on the opposite, because y'all on the same coin, y'all just opposite sides of it, right? Because you have your neo-Nazis on the internet, your social media skinheads on the internet that say, "Oh, no, there were no sub-Saharan Africans in North Africa until the Arabs." They always use the Arab timeline, the Arab expansion, to establish and be the foundation of all your fucking points. And as we can see here, that the sub-Saharan African component was introduced within the last 5,000 years. And we've been telling you guys and preaching to you guys the Green Sahara, where all these ancestries culminated. And what does it say? In a European component originally thought to have arrived due to the historical population movements, while many papers have suggested the Near Eastern and European components resulted from recent historical movements such as the Arab rule in medieval North Africa and trans-Mediterranean trade in the last 500 years, we see evidence for these components being present in North Africa in the Iron Age, around 2,500 years ago. So boom. Boom shakalaka, nigga. Get y'all goofy ass off of social media and actually read this stuff. Frago et al. 2018 showed that European component is at least partially linked to the farming expansion and is similar to the Anatolian early European farmers. We just read a whole paper that it was there 7,000, 8,000 years ago. Additionally, we show that both Near Eastern and Sub-Saharan African components were present in North Africa earlier than previously thought, reflecting the ongoing interconnectedness of North Africa to these regions for millennia, meaning thousands of years. The Sub-Saharan African ancestry we observe in Kirkhoin may result either from direct contact or indirect contact through the nomadic populations of the Sahara. These nomadic groups, known to the Greeks as Numidians, are thought to be ancestral to the Amazigh population living in North Africa today. The trans-Saharan trade routes made easier by greener, less arid Sahara today had connected the communities of North Africa with their sub-Saharan counterparts since the Bronze Age. Herodotus noted the coexistence of sedentary people and nomadic peoples in the land of Libya in the 5th century BCE. In addition to overland networks, these connections to sub-Saharan Africa also occurred by sea. Herodotus described Phoenician trade routes as extended far beyond the Mediterranean to the British Isles and West Africa via the Atlantic coast, and even that the Phoenician and Egyptian expedition had circumnavigated Africa the previous century. The Iron Age may have been a key period for gene flow across the Sahara as well. These people are diverse, whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're aquiline nose, wide nose, prognathicism. These people have been there, been mixing. They're part of that ancestry. Any questions? I'm done, man. Let's see what y'all got. All right. Let's see. Alizar looked like he went on a spiel here. Let's see. Yes, people went through different mutations and they developed their own distinct looks and stuff over time. Anyway, highest all these movies showing white people being the first Europeans is bullshit. Yeah, but when you say first Europeans, you're going to ancient times, we're talking 40, 50,000, they would all have been dark skinned. And these are the ancestors of modern Europeans. They're included with the ancestors. Yeah, Cedric, we have been taught to hang on a phenotype. This all comes from scientific racism of the 19th century. Alazar, you're correct. Looks can be deceiving. That's what happens with this North African conversation that we have. Every time they look at these people, oh, look at them, they white, they Arab. Racial phenotypes can serve as a hint, though. I disagree. But there could be people that look like they belong in a racial category, but actually descend from a totally different and distinct group. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm not gonna have an argument about who the children of what are. As you know, it's my channel. I've been getting away from biblical. I just have a disdain for biblical arguments now because it just gets to the level of pseudo, like new heights of pseudo. And then they're Mizraim. Okay, fine. Well, of course, haplogroup J is not even indigenous to North Africa, even though people pretend like it is. Who pretends that it's indigenous to North Africa? We all know haplogroup J is Eurasian. Most likely came from the Caucasus region. Yeah, some people do argue against A and E not being North Africa, but they're just idiots. Yeah, the Green Sahara allowed more than trade. It also allowed demic diffusion. People actually moved to these different regions, like we see with the RV-88 carriers in Chad, in Nigeria, and surrounding areas. Those are people moving and settling and having sex and leaving progeny behind. Yeah, for all these skinheads on the internet that say that pretty much there's a magical force field in the Sahara that's stopping people from migrating. It's just idiocy. Even after the aridification of the Sahara, you still had population movements. People still were traversing, whatever coastal or through the Sahara, they still did it. But when you remove the Sahara, then what's your argument? There is no argument. There's people that moved freely during that time. Okay, Alizar, I won't put you in that group, but I'm just speaking in general, man. I'm speaking in general. Any questions about what was discussed? Can we now put to bed this idiocy? I know we not, because it's going to come up again. I'm going to have to address it again. North Africans are not the sole product of Arabic invaders in the 7th century. In the 7th century. That's the point. That is the point. If y'all walk away from this video, we're about 2 hours and 11 minutes in, walk away with that. All right? Because you already know there's going to be an idiot that says, oh, no, look at them. Look how they look. And that's mainly where this stems from, is just how people look today. That's mainly where these arguments stem from. You can have somebody black as night be a direct descendant of Europeans. You have somebody that's white as chalk be the direct descendant of sub-Saharan Africans. We've went over this 1,000 times on the channel to ad nauseum. Trying to beat this shit into your heads. But we have overwhelming contingent of pseudos that just push this shit daily, 24 hours, 24/7, non-stop. Non-stop. All right, so any more questions before we got here? I think I covered everything that you guys were saying. Yeah, Cheddar Man, yeah, all the Europeans would have been dark. 8,000 years ago. I covered that in the beginning with the skin graphic. They didn't start getting pale until about 7,000 years ago. The whole of Europe. Alazar said, I met whites who are haplogroup E and blacks who are haplogroup R. People just don't understand that genetics runs deep. Yep. So my next video is going to be debunking or refuting, rather, the 12 tribes chart. And we're going to be dealing with the tribe of Judah claim. And we're going to be dealing with African Americans, which is going to deal with what you're talking about in particular. Because we got white Americans. If we did estimations on what that number would be, about 5-6 million white Americans would have been the E1, B1A. Or sub-Saharan African. And what do you do? What do you do with those people? Like, oh, they white. They Edomite. Like, shut the fuck up. Again, we don't got enough people telling people to shut the fuck up. There's just a lot of people acquiescing to this shit. Let me see if I missed something. Yeah, but Natali made the greatest point, man. He said it's always either the transatlantic slave trade or Arab invasion. It's never peaceful with these. Yeah, I know. Those are the main points with these white skinheads, with these neo-Nazis, social media neo-Nazis, and with these Afrocentrics and Black Hebrew Israelites. It's the same. They go to these two things all the time when they want to differentiate people or try to demarcate certain people of a different hue. Oh, well, the only reason you see this here is the transatlantic slave. The only reason you see that here because the Arab invasion. Like, shit's tired. I think this is a very. I think. How do we get past it? More people have to be educated in the fields that we're talking about. See, people want to talk ancestry, but don't want to deal with the field that deals directly with ancestry, which is biogenetics. That's how you get past it. More people involved with the field in question. We're talking ancestry. We need people that's involved with that field that teach and read and eat and digest it. That's how you get past it. These people are feeding on your ignorance. That's why you got Black Hebrew Israelites saying that Israel is located in Sudan some damn where, because they know that there are people that are ignorant of geography and that they can run that on. You know, or demography, dealing with migratory routes and the history of people moving. You got to have people in that read the basics of these, understand and grasp the basics first, and then go deeper into these things. Then you can get past it when you have enough people, and there's a contingent of people that know this stuff. They can't be quickly beguiled or easily beguiled by, you know, the swath of pseudos on the internet. All right, I'm gonna end it there, man. I'm gonna end it there, Cedric. I appreciate y'all reaching out. Stick around. Next video, we got some shit we need to speak about. There's 7 candlesticks up, and I've been telling you niggas, it ain't a debate. It's a stick up gang.
I'm about my fetty by all. Look here, I be on the paper chase. I'm all about my cheddar. I ain't touching the mic if it ain't 5 G's or better. I plan to never fall short. Again, I won't gain. Boy, I'ma tell you, no pain, no gain. I hustle hard for what I want, that's how I get it. I struggle hard, and if it's out there, I'm gon' get it. If you see CMR, a $sign on the CD, somewhere on there you'll see featuring the BG. Me and my nigga B, like Suge and Pop, we getting our shine on all the way to the top. Look, ain't no stopping us, boy, don't try. When you hear once, it ain't no secret you going by. You could lie about this, stunt about that. You can't dodge these 50 shots, I'm about the red tat-tat. Ain't nothing changed, still a buster wig splitter. Straight hustle for my cheese, I'm a money go get about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your fetty nigga, somebody clear hate split 'em. Get your fetty nigga, somebody clear hate kill 'em. I'm about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your fetty nigga, somebody clear hate split 'em. Get your fetty nigga, somebody clear hate kill 'em. It's all about Benjamin, that's all I wanna have. Ducked off in my house with a hoe taking a bubble bath. Sparkling marble, covering all my room floors. A maid in a bathing suit doing my house chores. Do not disturb sign on my bedroom door, cause my dick getting ate by my #1 whore. Look, I'm money hungry, about acting a donkey. No longer a junkie, I got rid of that monkey. I'm cheeky, I don't want you fucking with my shit. My neck and my knuckles covered with crushed out shit. Sparkling gold cover my motherfucking grill. Pockets filled with big head $100 bills. Fucking up this rap game with these wicked rap skills. And ain't far from making G's to making meals. I'm a trill BG, uptown hard hitter. On the real, my nigga, I'm a money go get about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your fetty nigga, somebody play hate split 'em. Get your fetty nigga, somebody play hate kill 'em. About my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your fetty nigga, somebody play hate split 'em. Get your fetty nigga, somebody try to stop you, kill 'em. Oh, I gotta get it, gotta grab it, gotta have it. Like snorting dope or snorting coke, it's a habit. I gotta see it, gotta feel it, quick to spin it. Shoot dice all day with my niggas trying to win it. I rap hustle, cause I'm a hustling ass nigga. Also a get told about busting some ass nigga. So you could play with me, about my cheese, you gotta go fool. In a casket, 6 feet deep, selling tapes and CDs like selling pick 3s. Ring up a million sales, we didn't hit the lottery. I'm a Benjamin chaser, player hater eraser. Police have no case cause I do murders without a trace. I'm almost at home, I didn't pass third base. I'm playing with 5 figures, but when I get 6, I'm straight. If I catch your bitch down bad, I'ma hit her. Paper chasing nigga, BG, a money go get about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your Betty, nigga. Somebody clear, hate, split 'em. Get your Betty, nigga. Somebody try to stop you, kill 'em. I'm about my paper, my cheese. So before my eyes close, I want my greens to add up to 6 zeros. Get your Betty, nigga. Somebody clear, hate, split 'em. Get your Betty, nigga. Somebody try to stop you, kill 'em. I'm about my Betty, nigga. I'm about my Betty. By all means necessary. I'm about my Betty, nigga. I'm about my Betty. By all means necessary. All about the Benjamin. It's all about the green, the motherfucking loop. VG. I get mine on. I get my grind on. I get my shine on. You get yourn on. I'm